So we've been working with transformations where I give you guys a pre-image, right? Something to start with. And then you guys have to transform it, either translation, rotation, reflection, dilation. And we work with some images like these, right? I started in black and they finish in blue. Now, you guys know what we do. Like you guys have been working, you guys have been using the transformation. Now, what if I give you the pre-image and the final image, and then I ask you, what did I do? Now, I'm not telling you which transformation I did. I want you to tell me which one did I do. Now, when it comes to figures, or when I give you guys the graphs, I'm looking at 60 through 63. I'm not going to limit myself to only special cases. Remember special cases I talk about on our notes, especially for reflection. I said for those special cases, but they were in the homework, we did some non-special cases. So when I give you the graph, I'm not going to limit myself to only special cases. If I only give you the coordinates, now I'm looking at 64 through 67. Now those I will limit myself to only special cases. So let's take a look. Question number 60. We have to write the rule to describe the transformation. Now, it doesn't quite look like translation. It doesn't quite look like translation because I see on the pre-image, so in the beginning, I see that F was the highest point. And then when I do the image, you guys see here in blue, F is the lowest point of the figure. So it's not quite translation. Things just didn't move. Now notice how on the pre-image, all my points are E, F, G, D, right? Just regular letters. And notice how in the blue, all of them are called primes. So you do know which one happened after the other. We had this printed. Unfortunately, sometimes my printer is only black. So we'll have a black image and another black image. So color will not help us. So in that case, notation is what helps. So again, it's not translation. It doesn't look like translation. It's not dilation because they look about the same size. So I'm confused. Could it be rotation? Could it be reflection? Now, one thing, let me follow a few points here. If I look at my point F and F prime, if I was to say I want to write a point like right in between them, like right in the middle, it will be about here. And if I look at my G and my G primes, if I was to mark a point right in the middle, it will be about here. And then if I was to look at the E's, right, E and E prime, and I said I want to put a point right in between them, right in the middle. And then my D's, D and D prime, if I was to mark a point right in the middle, is about right there. Interesting though is that those points are collinear. My midpoints, these are collinear. Now, collinear is basically I can draw a line that goes through them, right? You guys can see my line here. Now, because my midpoints are collinear, that means the distance on one side are the same distance as the other side. I have reflection. So I'm going to write this as reflection across. Okay, what's the equation of that line? So you guys see it in red. It goes through the origin, it's going straight from one corner to the other, it's going down. That is the line y equals negative x. Cool. Figure it out. Now let's take a look at question number 61. Doesn't quite look like translation, doesn't quite look like dilation. Could it be reflection again? Let's see. If I look at my V's, my point in the center, like V and V prime will be about there. The W's is about there. The U's and the X's. Wow, all my midpoints are right on the same point and centered. So it's not quite reflection. It looks like things rotated. Okay, let me see. It looks like rotation. So let me follow the coordinates of a point. I look at my point W. I'm going to look at W. The coordinates of W are 4, 1. And then let me get the coordinates of W prime. Looks like the coordinates of W prime are -4, -1. Hmm. It looks like XY became -x, -y. Seems like I just switched the signs. I wonder if that was just a unique point. Let's see if it happens on all my other points. Let's follow V. My coordinates of V are 3, 1. And my coordinates of V prime are -3, -1. Okay, so I can tell that XY becomes -x, -y. According to my notes, I look at my notes here, and it says rotation of 180 degrees about the origin. Now, what is this about the origin thing? Remember how when I found the midpoint earlier, midpoint was the origin? So everything was rotating about the origin. So that was the point that I held. That point did not move, and everything rotated around that point. Nice. Let's take a look at 62. Now, this one's easy to tell, right? You guys see the pre-image, the black image is small, and then the blue image is big. So this is dilation. As a matter of fact, because it got bigger, I expect my scale factor to be more than 1. Let me look at coordinates of 1 point. Let me follow J. So I see that J, the coordinates of J are 2, 1. And then J prime, coordinates of J prime are 3. Now the Y value looks to be about 1.5. I'm sure on the X value, but not quite on the Y value, because I don't know if it's 1.4, 1.6, right? It's a graph. I cannot be that sure. It looks about 1.5. So I know it's dilation. So I'm just going to write dilation of, now the way I'm going to find my X value, I mean my scale factor, I'm going to either use my X values or my Y values. Again, either the X values or the Y values. What I'm going to do, I'm going to do the value from the prime divided by the original value. So if I'm using the X values, starting with the number from the prime, so from J prime, I'm going to go 3 divided by 2. Use a calculator if you need to. 3 divided by 2 is 1.5. So I have dilation of 1.5. I expected my scale factor to be more than 1, so 1.5 sounds about right. I use the X values. If you would have used the Y values, 1.5 divided by 1, you get the same thing. Again, you have choices, the X values or the Y values. Start with the number from the prime. Cool, that was easy. Let's take a look at number 63. Now, this one looked like it was translation, right? It looks like I started with this image and I just moved it a little bit to the right and then I moved it down. We'll follow a point. Let me follow V and then I'm gonna get to V prime. It seems like I go 2 to the right and then I go down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So it seems like I go 2 to the right and 8 down. I wonder if that happens with all the points. Let me follow T. I go 2 to the right, 8 down. So yeah, if I look at U, it happens the same. So I want to call this translation. Translation of X plus 2, or I can even write it at 2 units to the right. And then Y minus 8, I can write that as 8 units down. Oh, that's not bad. Now let's take a look at question number 64. Now, when I have all numerical, I do have only special cases. Now, remember for special cases, the X and Y value can switch places. So I'm gonna say point E is not a good point to follow. Because -4, I cannot tell if X and Y switch places. Another thing that happens is that my values sometimes switch signs, like positives become negatives or negatives become positives. So I'm going to say point F is not good to follow because there's a 0. So that's not good to follow either. I'm going to follow point G. So let me see. I'm going to try to write a rule. X, Y becomes, the first thing I ask myself, did my X and my Y, did my 4 and my 2 switch places? No, it seems like X is forward and Y is 2 in both cases. So it didn't move. Then did I switch any signs? Yeah, I switched the sign on the first one, and then I switched the sign on the second one. Now, even though the first points are not good to follow, I'm just gonna go and check. Did I switch the signs? Is that what happened with all of them? There's no such thing as a -0. So yeah, that makes sense. According to my rules, this is rotation of 180 degrees about the origin. Cool. Let's take a look at question number 65. I'm gonna say W is not a good point to follow because there's a 0 in it. Y is not a good point to follow also because there's a 0 in it. Now, X had a 1 and a 2, and then X prime has like all their values. So because my numbers change, I know it's not reflection or rotation. It's either translation or dilation. Okay, so if it is translation, it seems like I have to add 0.5 to the X, and then I have to add 1 to the Y. If it is translation, then I take a look at one of my other points to see if it happens with all of them. I add 0.5 and I add 1. 0 plus 1, that doesn't work, right? -1 plus 0.5, that doesn't work either. Okay, so it's not translation. Okay, so right now, I know it's not reflection, I know it's not rotation, I know it's not translation. Well, guess what? It's dilation. And dilation of my scale factor, I'm gonna go 1.5 divided by 1. So I'm gonna say dilation of 1.5. Pretty cool, huh? Okay, so let's take a look at number 66 now. I'm gonna follow point H, but I could follow any point that I want. I'm gonna follow point H. Now, I notice that, and then the reason why I'm gonna follow point H is because my numbers are good. And then what I call good is that forward and -3 are different, right? So I will know if X and Y, they switch places, right? Because that happens sometimes, they switch places. I will know if I switch the signs, right? I will be able to tell that. And looking at H and H prime, right? H has a 4 and a -3, but H prime has a 5 and a -2. So my values change. So I know it is not reflection, and I know it's not rotation. So it's either translation or dilation. Okay, so let's take a look. If it was dilation, I'm gonna check. What if it is dilation? Again, my choices right now, I have either dilation or translation. I know it's not rotation or reflection because my values change. So if it was dilation, my scale factor using the X value, it will be 5 divided by 4. Now, when I look at my X value, did I multiply -3 times 5 forward? Does that give me -2? No, -3 times 5 forward is -15 over 4. So it's not dilation. So now by elimination, right? I was looking at the 4 possible cases. I know it's not rotation. I know it's not reflection. I know it's not dilation. So the only thing I have left is translation. Okay, I know for translation I have to add or subtract. So looking at my the x value from 4 to become 5, shouldn't I add 1, right? 4 plus 1. And I even take a look at my older points and I ask myself, does adding 1, does it always work? If I look at E, 1 plus 1 is 2, 0 plus 1 is 1, 3 plus 1 is 4, and 4 plus 1 is 5. So cool. I added 1 to my x values. Now for my y values, I'm thinking, okay, what do I do for -3 to make it -2? Well, it seems like I add 1 as well. And I even take a look at all my other points. And yeah, it seems like I do add 1 as well. So going to be translation, x plus 1, y plus 1. I added 1 to the x's and I also added 1 to the y's. In words, I will say 1 unit to the right, 1 unit up. Interesting. Let's take a look at my last example here, number 67. So I'm going to follow my point S. I'm going to follow S, and I see S prime is over here. So it seems like the values did switch, right? X, Y did become, to begin with, have an XY, because the 2 and the -1, 2 is still X value, 1 is still Y value. It seems like I only switched the sign on the X, because from +2 went to -2. And then I take a look at my R's, like R and R prime. Yeah, it seems like I only changed the sign on the X. The same thing happens for my point Q, and the same thing happens for my point P. The only thing that I did was switching the sign on my X value. According to our notes, that is reflection across y-axis. Now, we were on paper, like you guys came over and did this in person. Sometimes we might misspell, right? In reflection, we don't know how to spell, and then we spell it out with a K. Or rotation or dilation. We have misspells. I've seen misspells a lot. So we were on paper and it's fine. Just write it down. I can read the misspells. It's not a big deal. I might read it. Now, because our homework is online, I don't want to deal with the misspells. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to give these questions to you as a multiple choice. Okay, so you guys will be able to tell the difference, but I want you guys to know how to do the work. And then, like I said, I don't want to deduct points just because of a misspell. So I'm going to give it to you guys as a multiple choice. Now, the rest of the week, you guys are reviewing because we have a unit test this week. So the last 2 assignments are just review of the week.